Hello there, and a very warm welcome to Chazingdra Chats, the show where we take a stroll through the life stories of people in the Pokémon community, discovering the 6 Pokémon on their dream team along the way. I'm Charlie Merriman, Merri by name, Merri by nature, otherwise known as Chazingdra, a host and commentator for the Pokémon Video Game Championship Series, and a content creator. And this week, as every week, I very much hope my guest and I can make your day merry, because I have the pleasure of being joined by CloverBells, otherwise known as Joe. Joe, how you doing?
How you doing, Charlie? Great to be here. It's an absolute honor. How you doing, man?
Oh, well, that's very kind of you. I'm doing fantastically, thank you, Joe. For anyone who's not so familiar with you, Joe, can you give a brief introduction to yourself?
We do competitive Pokemon content on YouTube. Basically, the goal of the channel is to instruct and teach those who don't quite know how to play VGC right off the top, and then just to educate those, about the game a little bit. And then on the side, we have a day job as a teacher. We're also a basketball coach. We also teach chess on the side as well. So we wear multiple hats throughout the day. So it really just depends on the time of the day.
A busy person indeed, and yeah, fantastic VGC content it is. Now, Joe and I, we actually did meet very briefly at the Pokémon World Championships this summer in Anaheim, California. I say this summer 2025. At the World Championships, there's rarely and barely much time to talk to people there, because there's always so much going on. I was commentating the event, so I was very busy there. But it was nice at least to be able to cross paths in person, having known each other online for a little while. But this episode gives us the opportunity to get to know you so much better. So what do you say, Joe? Shall we do this?
Yeah, absolutely. That Worlds event, that was actually like my first in-person event in terms of like a regional. So, it's the World Championship, so it's not even like quote unquote a regional, but yeah, previously it was just like locals that I've been to, and even then it wasn't even that much. So to go to a first event of that magnitude with that stadium, right? And just to see a lot of people that I've known online, just like such as yourself, that was quite the experience. And I highly recommend for those who've never been to an in-person competitive event to get yourself out there and do the same thing.
100%. It's such a special atmosphere there. But we're jumping the gun here, Joe. We're jumping right up to the present day, but we want to get to know you and everything that's taken you up to that point. So shall we dive into your life story?
Okay, go for it. What do you got?
Alrighty, so let's get to know you better. Let's get to know the 6 Pokemon you're choosing for your dream team. And appropriately, what we're kicking things off with here is your childhood.
Okay, so growing up, I'm a New York City kid. I went to school just like anybody else. And at the time, right around 2nd, 3rd grade, that's when, I got my first Game Boy Pocket. I started playing Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue. And those were like some of my first games growing up, besides the PlayStation 1, right? That block, right? The gray square block. But, since then, I made a lot of friends with Pokemon. I even played TCG for a hot minute, back then when it was just like the base sets and the fossil sets. And then on the side, I was playing basketball a little bit, right? And then even into middle school days, more or less the same thing. That's when the Yu-Gi-Oh craze came out a little bit more. So we switched from TCG to Yu-Gi-Oh, but still we were playing Pokemon on the side, right? But this time now we're playing on the Game Boy Advance. And from there, just fast forwarding it to like high school days, again, more or less a little bit of the same stuff. We're still playing Pokemon. We're still playing basketball. We're even still now playing chess, right? Like chess was also another game that, I was playing since I was a kid. And, I started to see a lot of familiarity, right? If that was a word, between chess, basketball, and Pokemon. Now, at the time, I didn't realize it, right? But there was a common background there between the two games I saw, right? Not Pokemon yet. I didn't see it yet. But for basketball and chess, yes, I did see it. And we'll explain that more as we get into, another part. But from there, I was just an average kid, man. I went to school. I played sports. I played games. And I went home. I did the same thing the next day. So it wasn't really anything too crazy, in terms of like growing up.
Sure. So do you have any siblings?
I do not have any siblings. So yeah, I did grow up an only child. So like one of the things that, ends up being hard to do is learning how to share. Okay. Because growing up, mom and dad says, okay, this is yours. Good. Enjoy. This is your room. Good. Enjoy. You don't have to share anything. Nothing. Not food, not my room, not my games. So the first, times that I really had to learn how to share was in school. I didn't, when people brought out their brothers and sisters to hang out, I was like, oh, okay. Sometimes I see them fight a little bit. I was like, I don't have to do any of this. Okay. And then they would always tell me, oh, you're so lucky. You're an only child. I was like, I guess I don't know what it was like to have a sibling. I saw no drawback at the time, right?
Okay, so Pokemon's there. Is it the kind of thing where as soon as Pokemon came out, you were on it, you were playing it?
Oh, I was hooked. Back then the games were harder. Okay, there's no Google yet, right? This is like mid 90s. We had Ask Jeeves. If you were stuck in the games, you had to like buy the guidebook from GameStop, right? Like $30, and then maybe you split between a friend or two, and then if you got the answer or like how to figure out how to go somewhere if you got lost, then you would just actually pick up your house phone and call your friend like, hey, yo, I figured out how to get to the city, blah 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 blah. I was like, oh, how'd you do that? And then like back then we talked on the phone, at home. Okay, if we wanted to like talk to our friends, there was no like messenger chats or whatever. So yeah, there was a lot of times where I got lost and I got stuck. Okay. But the thing is, Charlie, here's the thing. Because the games were different in the 90s than they are now. And I saw a recent post on Instagram about this. The way games are made now versus what they were made back then, the different targets. Like I remember everything like from Red and Blue because it was all like trial and error, and you're taught to struggle through things that were halt your progression. You weren't given the answer immediately. There's no red dots that you could click and then it'll just auto guide you, right? Like games nowadays. And because of that, when I played like the newer stuff, I don't remember much. I can't even tell you the gym leader names for a lot of these, a lot of these Pokemon games, if anything, because it was just one run through and then that's it. You were done. Then you were doing like post game content and whatever. But back then, like in the 90s or like in the early 2000s, once you beat the game, you know what you did? You started a new game. You restarted your adventure again and again. And maybe you used different Pokemon. And that's kind of what I did back then. With Red, Blue, and like Gold and Silver, every time I beat the game, I started it again. And I used different Pokemon. But I would remember the routes. I would remember the gym leaders. I would remember where I got stuck. And then I would do it again. And this time I would do it faster. Okay, and that was key.
Well, from then out into asking, what's going to be the first Pokemon on your dream team? And as a reminder, everybody, the aim here is not for Joe to build the most competitively viable team, but he can do that if he so chooses. It's just the Pokemon that have been the most special to Joe over the years, and he can define that for himself in whichever way he wants. I have no idea what they are. He's decided on them in advance. So tell us, Joe, what's going to be Pokemon number 1?
Yeah, that was actually one of the harder parts, just to like, okay, this is not meant to be like a competitive VGC team. These are just like my personal favorite 6. We're going to kick things off with Grimmsnarl, actually, from Sword and Shield. Yeah, so this might be like the one where it was I gave the most competitive reason to without like, being biased towards like a favorite or whatever. But I liked Grimmsnarl just personally. When I got to use it in Sword and Shield, it was on, I would say, almost close to 80% of my teams. I liked the prankster ability. I liked its design, and I liked the typing that it had. I liked that, I could, have access to screens and be really annoying with some of these prankster moves like Thunder Wave and whatnot, and Fake Out and Parting Shot. Well, that came later on, of course, in Scarlet and Violet. But I just liked that it was annoying and it was more like a utility support mon. And I always like, the support options in like games just in general. Rather than like the big heavy damage dealer, of course we always appreciate the big heavy damage dealer And as a child, that's kind of what you wanted growing up. Like, as a kid, like, oh my God, I want to do all the big damage, the shiny numbers. You didn't really understand the support idea, growing up as a kid. But you had an appreciation of it later on, as you grew, when you understood there are roles that certain Pokemon can play. The same way that there are roles that players can play on a sports team, and the same way that there are roles that pieces on a chessboard can fulfill. So Grimmsnarl is my first pick there. Defensive Pokemon. I like defense. So that was option number 1.
Grimmsnarl joining the team, yeah. Grimmsnarl, a Pokemon that is there too, with its practice abilities, you said, it boosts the priority of those supportive moves. For example, paralyzing an opponent so that they're not moving as quickly, or setting up screens so that your team can soak up more damage before they get knocked out. Okay, sure. Do you remember sort of... were you using Grimmsnarl from the beginning, or was it as soon as you tried a team with Grimmsnarl, then you were locked in and you wanted to use Grimmsnarl as much as you could?
I remember when I was going through the playthrough of Sword and Shield, I managed to catch what, in its pre-evolution. And you see, I can't even remember its pre-evolution. What was it at? The beginner form? I can't even remember.
So it's Impidimp.
Yeah, there you go. Impidimp, right? And then I was like, oh, is this thing good? Oh, base 120 attack. Okay, when it becomes a Grimmsnarl, okay, let's add this to my team. But I just liked how it looked. It looked like something for Halloween.
Yeah.
And it was easy to make a mask for Halloween, at an event, here in New York. So I was like, let me just do a makeshift Grimmsnarl. So I cut up some cardboard and some purple and green construction paper, and I literally made a Grimmsnarl mask, and I just tied some string around it. And this was a couple of years ago. So that was pretty good. And then I just wore like a purple shirt and some green sneakers, and I was like, okay, here we go. We got Grimmsnarl going for Halloween there. So I actually did manage to cosplay as a Grimmsnarl a couple of years ago. But yeah, I just thought it was a really, really cool Pokemon at the time. Now, obviously, I got to learn a little bit more about it when I learned more about what competitive Pokemon was, which was during the Sword and Shield time. And then that made me like it even more, right? But yeah, that's pick number 1 for me.
Sure. The commitment to the Grimmsnarl cause. Well, welcome to the team, and everybody. If you're enjoying this chat with CloverBells, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel, because there are plenty more episodes where this one came from, and it goes such a long way. But there's so much more conversation to have. So now we will set up our reflect from there into college.
Oh man, college. Okay. So I went into New York University, right? We'll call it NYU for short. And at the time, I wasn't quite sure what my major wanted to be, but I was a science and math guy, ever since the childhood days. So, as I was, going through the application process, right, we're just picking schools. We ended up with NYU. And from there, I decided to go into the engineering school, right? But I didn't actually want to become an engineer. I just wanted to be in the engineering school, but I chose a different path. I chose to do a biotech path at the time there, because again, I was trying to juggle between what I wanted to do after college. I'm like 17, 18 at the time, still finding ideas and things I may like and not like, but I knew I liked science and math. So let me just throw myself in an environment where there is a lot of science and math, even though I wasn't really sure of the major at the time. So I'm in the engineering school, okay, and I'm in the biotech path. And then that path was interesting, because there was also like a branch for like pre-med students as well. And I decided, like, I'm not going to be a doctor growing up, but I still want like some background within that, right? So again, what can I do here? If I don't want to be a doctor, do I want to work in a lab? Do I want to work in industry somewhere? Do I maybe want to transition to be an engineer? Okay. I was still juggling these thoughts while still like taking classes, right? So fast forwarding to junior year, right? We're pretty close to graduating, but still at this time, we're not really sure after college what are we going to do. I did, kind of just say to myself, look, we're probably not going to be a doctor. Okay, I like the knowledge, I like the background that I was able to get from like my bio and some of my pre-med courses, but in the end, I didn't want to be a doctor. But I didn't really want to be an engineer either, right? Because again, like I liked the amount of math I learned. I liked some parts of the engineering that from some of the classes I was taking. But even then, I didn't really see myself, civil or mechy. They had their own branches and whatnot. So I got all these credits. I got a ton of background here, with engineering and pre-med. So still now I'm trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. But then an opportunity came up. I got an email from one of the other schools at New York University. They were starting up a teaching program. Okay, they were recruiting science and math majors to become teachers. Now, when I saw this email, I was like, I never ever considered being a teacher, never. All right, but at least at the time, when I was reading the email, they said, we'll give you about $35,000 in scholarship money, and then you get a free iPad, and then you get your free masters at the same time. I was like, oh, you know what? This is actually a sweet deal. So at the time, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, right? So I figured, okay, look, if I can get a free masters while I'm still thinking about what I want to do, let me try this out. So I signed up. I got the free iPad. At the time, this is like 2012. So that was fun. And I got my master's degree in teaching within that time frame. So I made a little pivot there. From there, I think after I graduated, I got hired in like 2 weeks from a school when I was doing like my job search. I was like, oh, well, okay, we got a job now. So that part was easy.
That's great.
Yeah. So now that I got this teaching job, okay, I still have like to fulfill this requirement that I have with the university. You have to teach in what we call a high need school for 2 years, right? Otherwise you have to pay the money back because remember they paid for my master's, right? So I figured, all right, at this time, let's just fulfill my duties and let's see where we go after these 2 years. And let's see, do we want to continue with teaching or do we want to pivot elsewhere? Because by the time I finish my agreement, I will have reached age 24, 25.
Maybe Joe will just put a pin in that now and then we'll continue that after you tell us what's going to be Pokemon number 2 on your dream team alongside Grimmsnarl. All
right, alongside Grimmsnarl, we're going to go with Milotic here. Okay, yeah. So Milotic has always been one of my favorites, just in terms of like water types. Because, again, going back to what I was saying about games back in the 90s, Charlie, Pokemon was hard back in the day. You know how hard it was to get a Milotic back then?
Yeah.
What was it? It was like, let me try and remember the process. Besides the feedback, you needed to like, what was it, raise its beauty level, right?
So, first of all, there are only 6 particular squares.
Right.
Where your character can stand on the route, where Feebas will appear, and those tiles will shuffle sort of every so often. And then once you actually find the Feebas, which evolves into Milotic, there are contests in Generation 3, and you max out a certain stat of a Pokemon. And for Feebas, you have to max out its beauty, but it's a very complicated process of working out how many of the so-called poker blocks to feed it to be able to do that, and only then, once you level up, can it become Milotic. It's an amazing odyssey to try and get a Milotic in that game.
Right, yeah, right, Charlie. Like that and that's what I was gonna say. Like, just to even get the Feebas was insanely long. Like, even as a kid, I didn't even know there was like 6 tiles. I was just like moving around, like, it's got to come on one of these days, right? I didn't even know there was like 6 tiles. I had to like look this stuff up and buy the guidebook, and then I didn't even find that information until like my friend told me, hey, there's only 6 tiles. are you lying to me right now? What do you mean there's only 6? How do you know that? Okay. So, and then like I was trying for ages, like I think maybe weeks I was trying to get it. And then one of my friends said, I got one. I'll just trade it to you. Like, no, that defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
Okay. I want the struggle. Okay. Eventually I got one. All right. Eventually I went through the process, right, to get the Milotic. And then once I got it, it was so satisfying, right? Because again, I liked how it looked, and I liked its stats. And I just thought, like, once I got this thing, I was going to use it as much as I can, in any game that I could get it in. But, just the satisfaction of accomplishing that thing that was so hard, and then using it, eventually I would learn, like, oh, it gets this competitive ability. Oh, this is cool. Now it gets to do more damage when it's in front of Intimidate. Again, I didn't know this at the time, even still growing up, because I wasn't introduced to competitive Pokemon just yet. But I just liked Milotic as a mod because I struggled so hard to get it. So because of that goes on my team.
Makes total sense. So welcome alongside Grimsnarl here to your dream team. So now we'll continue with high school teaching that you were telling us about.
Okay, yeah. So now that we got this gig, okay, we're into school, and again, my goal, as I mentioned, was let's just finish these 2 years. Let's see how it goes, and then if we want to, we can pivot and try something else, right? Because we're still exploring career options, right? I'm still at this point. I'm 23, right? I just graduated with my master's, so. All right, so now we're teaching, okay? When I was doing my interview process, okay, we need a science teacher, okay? Well, we got these classes that we need you to teach, and here you go. So I said, okay, yeah, sure. So I taught it, okay? 2 years go by. I fulfilled my obligations, and, I had to take that summer. What was this? Summer 2016. Let's think, okay, do we want to continue? Is this something that we like? Is this something that we can see ourselves doing for, a while? Because again, we're still fairly young enough where, like, I could still go back to school. I could still do something else. And I didn't mind it. So I figured, you know what? We got a good thing going here. Okay. So let's do this a little bit more. Okay. So I stuck it out, and then Charlie, then came the opportunity, right? Another opportunity. So I mentioned growing up, I like to play basketball, right? I played on a high school team briefly. And then I didn't play in college, but at the time, at the school I was working in, the head coach was going to retire. And the principal offered me the opportunity. Hey, Joe, do you want to coach our high school team? And I'll leave it at there, Charlie.
Yeah, that's nice. Nice, lives on the cliffhanger. That is... I'm glad that, over the course of those 2 years, you figured, yeah, you've got a good thing going. I think, especially at that age, it's all too tempting to sort of see it as a grass is greener on the other side sort of thing. It's like, yeah, but I could be doing this, but I'm glad that you stuck it out, because now, of course, it's something you're still doing, and so I'm glad that you are thriving doing that. But now it's time to learn what's going to be Pokemon number 3 on your dream team alongside Grimsnarl and Milotic. Okay,
so we got the Grimsnarl, we got the Milotic. Let's go with a dragon type here. I liked a few, right? And I'm gonna go with Gudra over here. Okay. At the time when I was playing, what was it? X and Y. That's where I got it from. Yeah. So that besides the red Gyarados that you automatically get back in like gold and silver, this was the first shiny I ever caught. Okay. And it was actually the first shiny I ever ran into at the time when I was playing X and Y. I was over at my friend's house. We were all just playing Pokemon on X and Y, just eating snacks, right? We were just playing the game. And then, I was trying to catch some Pokemon from my Pokedex. And then I ran into a Gumi, right, in the wild. And then it was a shiny, right? It was like, I was like, yo, this Gumi is like yellow. What is this? And it's like, and Joe, that's a shiny. I'm like, oh, this is what it is. Okay. Now, did I have Pokeballs in my bag to catch it? Yes, I did. Okay. So I was very fortunate, right? I had Pokeballs to try and catch it, and I caught it. So the Goomy became my first ever shiny that I ever caught in a Pokemon game. That wasn't the red Gyarados. This thing was like a tank. Okay, and I like that it could soak up a lot of these special attacks. But again, I also just like that it looked like a it looked like a yellow Barney, right? It was kind of cute. It was like a cute dragon. And it's the only pseudo legendary that's like a monotype from what I understand, right? So yeah, so it was just straight dragon. It looked kind of derpy, but it was cute. And I liked how they kind of portrayed it in the anime as like this kind of like little derpy dinosaur that, you know, for Ash, when it came down to it, like, oh, okay, like he could really throw some hands, because again, it is a pseudo legendary dragon.
The fact that your first random shiny was a Goomy is very cool indeed.
Yeah.
One that is evolves to be so powerful. Shiny Goodra. Well, welcome to the team. And now, I guess up to this point, is it a case that whenever a new Pokemon game comes out, this is up to the point where you're teaching in high school, you're getting it and you're playing it, or has it taken a backseat, or how's that worked?
All right. So basically, it's like a time commitment, right? So, you know, the teaching gig is one of those jobs where like you're still working even when you're not working, right? So like your normal hours, let's say 8 to 3, right? But even when 3 p.m. hits, you're still doing the teaching job, because you still have to like plan lessons, grade assignments. Okay, so this is nothing new. This is something that all teachers have to do, right? For those who are watching, you know what I'm saying. So even then, like when you go home, you're still doing quote unquote the job to some extent. So when a new Pokemon game does come out, right? Yes, I will buy it. Yes, I will play it. Will I finish it? That's harder, right? So like I'll complete enough of it where this is like the last couple of years where yes, I can finish it. You know, enough where like, okay, I can make trades and I can do other main stuff. But as far as like, you know, getting all 8 badges and, you know, playing the Elite Four, well, if we had an Elite Four, and then doing some post-game stuff, that comes whenever I have free time. Back in the day, I had a lot more where like I could just play it through straight and then just like beat the game within a decent time frame. But you know, right around the time when Sword and Shield came out, which was when I was, you know, starting my, or not like starting, but like carrying into the teaching career of like full swing and whatever, like, you know, after like a few years of being hired, that's where like my time became more divided, because we had the teaching gig, then we had the basketball gig, the coaching gig, right? And then, all right, when you come home, you're still kind of doing both a little bit. So you only have so many hours that you can play Pokemon. And then don't forget, we're an adult now, Charlie. We got to do like household duties, right? And just other things that require my attention that aren't work or Pokemon related, right? So,
but at least you were keeping your hand in, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops. But now we will continue to learn about what we started talking about there, basketball and coaching.
Yeah, so that was like the next part for our journey here. So, you know, growing up, we played a lot of basketball. We played on a team, and then again after a couple of years of doing the teaching gig, when the head coach of their squad was hanging it up, I was offered the reins. I was offered the keys to the house, right? So here we are. Now we're coaching, okay, and we're it's an entirely different thing than being a fan and watching it on TV, because now you're in charge of a squad, right? And, you know, coaching and teaching, they do go hand in hand, Charlie, right? So it's just, instead of a content class, you're teaching basketball. You got different students coming in now as athletes who have different skill sets. And now you have to figure out, you know, how to try and make a competitive squad. Almost like trying to build a competitive Pokemon team, right? Where you have different Pokemon in different roles. Now we've got different student athletes with different roles, right? So here we are, just getting into the, you know, year one, not off to a great start. And honestly, you know, just to like make a long story short here, we had a couple of rough years. I'm not gonna lie. Like we made progress every single year, but not for like my competitive taste. So we had more losses than wins, and this was true for the first 9 years, okay, of our coaching career, right? So again, we're teaching during the day, and then we're coaching in the evening, right? But slowly, every single year, we add something new, we learn something new, we implement something new, and the building process of building a team, right? Rather than just saying, oh, like you do this, you do that, you do that. You can do that with chess pieces, right? But now you have to manage the student athletes, student before the word athlete, right? A lot of emotions come into play. Their interests may be different than your interest, right? These are not robots, Charlie, right? So sometimes it became not just about basketball. Now it just became managing about what you're doing in the classroom and outside of the classroom, right? So there was a lot of things to juggle just besides the basketball stuff. So even though, yes, we were coaching, we were doing a lot more than just that. We were managing a lot of personalities. Okay, let's leave it at something like that. And when you're part of a team, you have to do certain things, within a team, and not just what you want to do, right? Because if you do, I say this if you do what you want to do, we're going to lose by 30. Okay? You got to stick to the game plan here. When you're on a team, you got to know how to play with other people, right? The same way, like when you're working in a job, right? You got to know how to work with your coworkers. Now, there are jobs where like it's just you, right? Fine. But if you don't know how to work with other people for one goal, you're going to struggle, okay? And you're going to get frustrated. And I tell them this every year, all right? It's going to be the same thing here, and it's going to be the same thing when you get a job, when you get out there, right? So if you don't learn how to play within a team, we're going to get packed up, okay? And for 9 years, we got packed up, okay? But still, along the way, we were learning slowly. And then finally, after 9 years, I got the squad I felt that was good enough where we could make a push for that first championship ring. We made the playoffs. We lost by 1 in the semis. They were crushed, okay? And then COVID happened. This is right when COVID happened, roughly. Okay, so we lost a year after that. So then we come back, it's totally different, right? I have to rebuild the basketball team. We just made a playoffs, right? And COVID happens. Not everybody has their vaccines. And the ruling at the time was if you weren't vaccinated, you couldn't play, right? So a lot of schools struggled getting teams, right? Because a lot of players at the time were still struggling to get their vaccines because, again, this was still like fairly new at the time. But once that first year after COVID passed, okay, after that first initial playoff run, okay, here we are, where we got a championship squad, and we got that first championship ring. Where before that, we lost by 1, but now in this first championship ring, we won by 2, barely at the last second. I was like, yes, finally, after 10 years. Right, first 9 years no good, and then COVID happened, and then boom, finally in that 10th year we got that first championship ring. And you don't see it here, but there's my Celesteela plush sitting behind me. He's wearing my medal there. Okay, yeah, but now okay, you got that first one. Okay, was it a fluke? Can you get another? All right, so now we have the blueprints. Everything we've learned for 9 years, okay, we messed up many years. We tried something new. We messed up again. We tried something new. You see, this is where you got this experience when you're playing video games in the 90s growing up. You did something, you failed, you got to try again. You failed, you tried again, you failed, you tried again. As the great Shaquille O'Neal once said, before you succeed, you must first learn to fail. So I failed a lot before we reached success. So now, second championship year, right? Same thing. We did a lot of the same stuff. I made a couple changes. We have a couple new players now. We got that second ring. Great. You repeated what you did the first time, right? And then now we fast forward to last year where we just put it all together, right? And then we were so dominant, and then boom, we got the third one. So I struggled for 9 years, Charlie, and then all of a sudden now we have all this success these last 3 years, all right? And we got 3 straight championships in New York City. Right, unheard of. I couldn't write a better movie than this right now.
I was gonna say that's incredible. I would love to see this movie. I would love to see the adaptation. Yeah, I think that's a really wonderful showcase of just pick yourself up, try again, and it might take a really long time. It might take 9 years, like you said, but eventually the results will come in if you put in that graft. So that's wonderful to hear. Thank you so much for that, Joe. Now into what's going to be Pokemon number 4 on your dream team, alongside Grimmsnarl, Milotic, and Shiny Gudra.
Okay, so this one we're gonna go with a fire type here. We're gonna go with Entei here. Okay, yeah. So we like Entei, and this is getting to be like a little bit of a running theme here, but just this, like Milotic, has to do with the struggle of getting Entei. So once again, Charlie, you could probably tell the viewers back in Gold and Silver, how could you get Pokemon like Entei, Suicune, and Raikou?
Well, Joe, since you ask, in Gold and Silver, yeah, you encounter them when I think you've got 3 badges in the game, and then they scatter all over the region. And it's up to chance when you enter a route whether any one of those 3 will be on that route. They're called roaming Pokemon. And if they're not there, you'd have to come back and see, just keep going in, going back until one of them was on the route, the one that you wanted to catch, and you could check their location on your Pokédex as long as you'd run into it at least once. So yeah, it's tough to find any one of those 3, and then of course you have to catch it. It's really a satisfying challenge.
Yeah. So again, just like the Milotic, and this was a challenge too. And back then I didn't have a lot of information. Right, there was a lot of theory and speculation with my friends. There's no Google, there's no YouTube. Right, this is like early 2000 or like 1999. I don't remember off the top of my head for Gold and Silver, but just even trying to catch the Entei was hard. Okay, but I by chance, like again, I didn't get this like when I first bought the game. No. Like even after I don't even remember, like after maybe after a year of playing Gold and Silver, like I still played the game. I still kept restarting my game again and again and again. What did he do? He would just like roar you out, and then he ran away. I got lucky.
Away, exactly.
I got lucky. I ran into the Entei. I think I had a great ball at the time. Like, let me just throw it. I got it. I was like, yo.
Wow.
All right. So then from then on, I was like, and I honestly, like, of the 3, I like Entei the most anyway. So the fact that I was able to run into one and then grab it was great. And I always wanted a dog growing up, and here we got one.
Very cool, and that's incredible that you were able to catch it on just the first great ball that you threw. And memories of those classic Pokemon games, Generation 2 is my favourite. And it's an interesting balance of types that we've got, and they are all unique types so far. We've got Dark and Fairy with Grimmsnarl, we've got Water with Milotic, we've got Dragon with Gudra, and now we've got Fire with Entei. So we'll see how that continues to develop. But now we'll Sacred Fire from there into now learning VGC during the pandemic.
Yeah, so, just before we grab that, so we have to take a little bit of a back step. Before we started grabbing basketball championships, COVID happens, right? Excuse me. We're sent home. Okay. And at that point, this is what's going on with teaching and schooling. They called it, like they had all kinds of names: virtual learning, asynchronous learning. Either way, Zoom classes, right? So it was a time. No one was prepared for COVID, right? No one. Everything was just being figured out on the fly, right? But anyway, long story short, we're at home, okay? Besides, just doing stuff online for teaching and schooling, wasn't really much to do, right? It was dangerous to go outside, right? Quote unquote. So I had Sword and Shield. I didn't finish it, okay? So I figured, look, I got nothing to do. I'm tired of watching YouTube for 8 hours. Let's play. Let me take out my Switch. Let's finish Sword and Shield. So I turned on the game. I finished Sword and Shield. So then it came to like the breeding part, right? So like I'm hatching eggs. You know, I'm trying to breed Pokemon. And at the time, I think I was just trying to get a good squad going for like the Battle Tower is what it was called. I think it's called the Battle Tower, where like you have to play the 50 games or whatever. All right, cool. So we play the Battle Tower. We start breeding and stuff. Okay, and then you know I got stuck trying to figure out where certain Pokemon were, or like how to. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I was trying to figure out how to do something in the game. So I went on YouTube and I tried to search for that thing, and then of course when you go on YouTube, you're gonna get recommended videos, right? And then you know what came up, Charlie? The not a complete a little. It was a Pokemon video, but it was not for what I was searching for, right? Nothing to do with breeding or anything like that. It was, I think it was the Collinsville Regionals at the time. I think it was like from 2019. I don't remember the year, but it was like something where like I saw a player. I think it was Michael Aron. I don't remember who it was, but it was at Collinsville. I saw the video. I saw the thumbnail of the video. I was like, the heck is this? People play Pokemon in person? Click. All right. So I opened the video. And then I see players playing what looks to be as like competitive Pokemon, right? And I was like, what is this? Hold on, let me keep watching this. And then there's 2 Pokemon in the field. And then on the other side, there's 2 Pokemon in the field. So there's 4 now. I was like, what the heck is this? This is not the Battle Tower. And I was like, wait, let me see this. So then, you know, and I didn't know this was like VGC at the time. I had no idea, right? I just called it. I just saw it as like double battles, as like 2 people playing in person, right? So I watched it, right? And I was like, oh, and, you know, things are happening. 1 player wins. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Mike. I don't remember. But then guess what happens? You know, the YouTube algorithm kicks in. So after that, there was another one. Wait, click. Before I know it, I'm on WOLFE GLICK's channel. I find Aaron Cybertron Zhang's channel before that, and then oh look, we got Pokesports going. So like before I knew it, I spent like that whole day just like watching these quote unquote competitive Pokemon VGC videos, and I thought, yo, this is something pretty cool. I never found what I was looking for in Sword and Shield, whatever I don't remember what I was trying to breed at the time or what item I was trying to get, but I was like, yo, this looks pretty cool. All right, so then I got what I needed for the Battle Tower. I beat that, but then I realized, oh, you could play online. You could play ranked battles online. I didn't know that, okay? Because, you know, prior to this, I was just like, you know, a casual Pokemon player, right? Play the story, play it again, restart, whatever, okay? I didn't know there was a competitive aspect. I had no idea, okay? I thought it was just like singles, if anything. But then, again, it's COVID, right? There's nothing to do. So after that, I just, you know, days and days are going by. I'm just watching. I'm soaking up content, right? And then I'm learning, like, okay, look, these are Pokemon. They're 6 you bring forward to the game, etc. So most of that COVID year, okay, into, you know, well, up until present time, of course, like we're slowly learning the game. We're slowly finding YouTube channels. We're slowly, you know, getting better and better at this game. And then I think within like the first month, I hit Master Ball ranked on doubles. I was like, oh, okay. Is there a rank after Master Ball? And there wasn't. It was just numbers after that, right? There was like what, Pokeball tier, Great Ball tier, Ultra Ball, Master Ball, right? So I didn't even know there was deals. Like, okay, so now I guess we're just playing players that are the same ranked as me. And then again, now I start learning team building stuff. Like, okay, I start watching more Aaron Zhang. I start watching more James Beck. I start watching more, et cetera. So before I knew it, oh, now I figured I see Twitch. Like, what is Twitch? Okay, so now there's YouTube stuff. Now there's Twitch stuff. So now I see live people actually playing VGC, right? And again, at this point, I figured what VGC was. Like, I knew what the 3 letters stood for, right? But now there's actual people at home playing VGC, right? And some of the first ones I discovered was Joe Ugarte, right? Joe UX9, as you call him. Aaron streamed a couple times, right? And then there was these other ones that were also streaming, right? I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. Okay, so again, we're all at home. This is COVID. But that's kind of how I discovered it, right? It was just by chance during COVID.
Very interesting. Okay, and now it's making sense. The threads are starting to come together of the fact that, yeah, you were keeping up with Pokemon over the years, and this is why it was so fascinating to you. And I think we all identify with that as soon as each of us in our own way discovered what VGC was, and he said what they stand for, Video Game Championships. And just how eye-opening it is that, okay, this is not such a niche hobby anymore. This is something that we can enjoy with lots of other people in person. And all four of those people and creators you mentioned there, WOLFE GLICK, Aaron Jang, James Beck, and Joe Ugarte, they've all been on this podcast. If you're enjoying this episode, do take a moment to watch and listen to those episodes as well. Listen to some of the VGC greats. Interesting. So we're paving a way now into what was to become your YouTube career, but we'll just pause on that for now because it's time to discover what's going to be Pokemon number 5 on your dream team alongside Grimmsnarl, Milotic, Shiny Gudra, and Entei.
Yeah. We're going with Ferrothorn here. Yeah, we're going with Ferrothorn here. So at the time, I was, at this point I knew what VGC was. And I was breeding for competitive Pokemon here and there. And I liked what Ferrothorn had to offer. I liked its stats. I liked its typing, right? Grass Steel was pretty good. It was just only fire you had to really worry about. And Dynamax was a funny mechanic in Sword and Shield, right? So I was looking at Ferrothorn there, and I was learning what Trick Room was. I was learning what a lot of things were in competitive Mons at the time. And I wanted to try and play the Trick Room idea. And one of the Mons I was looking at the time was Ferrothorn. And I remember growing up when I also caught a Ferrothorn, and I used it for a bit on my team. It was cool. But at that time, I didn't know what competitive Pokemon was. I was like, this thing is too slow. I'm not hitting first. I'm taking damage. I want to be the one that hits first, right? So I stuck it in the PC and I didn't use it. But I think back to that, I was like, no, I should have used it, man. This thing is hard to break. And I discovered, how good Leech Seed was. Right? Growing up as a kid, I was like, why does anyone use this move? This thing is not do damage. You're only getting a little bit of health back, right? Forget about this move. I want to use some damaging moves. So things like Tail Whip, Growl, Leer, I didn't appreciate those moves, right? Growing up as a kid because, you're a kid. You want to deal damage. You don't want to do like the slow, methodical chess game, right? Right. That was not the thinking process back then. So as I grew older, right, and as I learned about what VGC was, I got an appreciation for these support moves, right? Because I got to see it in action. I was like, this makes sense. Okay. All right. So then I saw Ferrothorn. I saw the ability to use Leech Seed. I discovered what Protect was. All right. And I figured, okay. So now you can do this. You can seed this Pokemon. You can Leech Seed that Pokemon. You can Protect. Right? And then you can get more recovery with leftovers. And before you know it, they can't break you, right? And I was looking for that kind of idea. And Ferrothorn was one of the Pokemon that could do it. And I liked that you could Dynamax it. And I liked that you could get access to other cool moves like Max Darkness or Max Knuckle and boost its attack even further, right? Or like the Darkness where you drop Spadef, special defenses, and then have a special attacker by its side take advantage of the reduced special defense. So I liked Ferrothorn for what I was trying to do at the time to do it. And I just liked using it. And I this was the second shiny I ever caught, in a Pokemon game, because as I was going through my breeding adventures in Sword and Shield, trying to pass the time during COVID, I hatched an egg and it was a Pharaoh Seed, right? I was like, oh, this is a blue shiny, right? Because Ferrothorn is normally a green and then the steel color is gray, but this was blue. And I was like, oh yeah, we're using this. I gotta use this. All right. So, more kind of very similar to the Gudra reason where, like, again, I caught a shiny. I ran into a shiny. I like bulky Pokemon, right? And this was, you can kind of look at my list here. These are all very bulky, rather bulky Pokemon. These are not frail. So I like bulk. I like being able to soak up damage and at least deal big damage back. So besides the Grimstar, well, even Grimstar, right? Base 120 attack, right? So I like Ferrothorn for what it was trying to do for me at the time. I caught it as a shiny. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, certainly a lot of bulk on this team, and for an unfamiliar, Trick Room reverses the speed order, so slower Pokemon will be moving first, and that means Ferrothorn can sweep. But before we round out this dream team, we will power whip from there now into YouTube.
Okay, yeah, so we know what VGC was. I'm still at home, right? We're not quite back in the classrooms just yet. I'm slowly learning VGC. I'm going through YouTube. I'm trying to find certain things, right? I'm finding a lot of battles, right? Again, Cybertron Zang. I'm finding a lot of, gameplay stuff, but I wanted to know more informational stuff, right? I wanted to learn a little bit more about, building teams and using Pokemon certain ways. There wasn't really a whole lot of content on that, or at least I wasn't finding it at the time back then. I think 2021, 2020-ish. Right. So as I learned more and more, I figured, look, I still can pass the time here. Let me try and do the same thing. Let me try and post some stuff on YouTube. Let me post some gameplay. Let's see what happens here. Look, I got nothing else to really do. All right. And again, we're still stuck at home here. So this, at the time, it was, I thought, look, let's just make some YouTube content. We started doing just basic gameplay stuff, right? I was just playing some battles on ranked ladder, some casual ladder games, posting it up, right? I'm giving commentary, right? I'm showing my face on camera and whatnot. And then, oh, look, we're getting some subscribers here. Oh, okay. There's people watching. I guess they got nothing better to do at home either, right? So they're watching. Right, I can see it, right? And then while I'm playing and while I'm uploading videos, I'm still learning, Charlie. I'm still watching on the side. Like, I'm still watching Joe Ugarte on Twitch. I'm still watching these other players play on Twitch. I'm still soaking up information, learning VGC, while I'm also putting out videos myself. Eventually, right, I booked coaching sessions, right? So I booked coaching sessions. I think there was like 2 with Joe Ugarte. I booked a couple with Michael Arand, right? Who again I think was the first person I found in VGC when I found that Collinsville regional on the YouTube feed from the algorithm at the time. So I did a couple with both of them. I was like, oh, okay, a lot of this stuff makes sense. I got to ask questions, and then. Again, but like, why was none of this stuff on YouTube? Why is none of this information out there? Or at least I didn't find it, right? So figured, okay, if it's not out there, I'll put it out there, right? Let me help somebody else, right? Because, we're a teacher, right? We like to share. We like to instruct and teach people. So like, I'm pretty sure there's people out there trying to play Pokemon VGC that have no idea what they're doing either. So let me share the knowledge that I got with these people, right? So I changed the content a little bit of the channel. So instead of just straight battles, I mixed it up now. Now I'm putting out like informational content. I'm showing people how to do this. I show this is what I learned and how to do this. This is how you use this Pokemon in this team. And then the views started increasing more and more and more, right? And before I knew it, within I think 10 months, I got 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Right, I monetized the channel, right? So now I figured, oh, you can make some side money with this. So I applied for YouTube Partner. I got it. Okay, I didn't know what it really meant at the time, but I got it. So like, I'm YouTube Partner now. Okay, and then from then on, okay, I kept making more videos. I kept making more informational content. So now I figured, how else can I add to this? What people might want to see. So then I started thinking of other video ideas, like, okay, let's do a tier list. Let's do whatchamacallit. Let's also do and again, this is at this point, like, I learned about tournaments that you can have them online. Let's look at tournament results online and let's break it down and let's see what are Pokemon that are popular, why they're popular, why this team is good, why this team needs work. Okay, so now this is where people really started getting interested, right? And then within that second and third year, this is also when the new game came out, Scarlet and Violet. That's when the channel really took off a little bit more, right? So more and more and more, the views started increasing. What else can they get from me that maybe they can't get from someone else, right? And before I knew it, 5,000 subs came. Then we had 10,000 last year. And now, fast forward to today, like 13,000, right? On the channel. I never thought I would ever reach this high of a sub count and not having been to a single regional chart. I never thought that ever, right? Again, this started as just something to pass the time during COVID, but here we are today.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. What an amazing story. And I guess it's, as you started doing this during COVID as another way to pass the time, but as things have continued, are you enjoying keeping up the balance of teaching and coaching as well as doing the VGC content?
Yeah, it was hard. It's very, very hard. But it was a little bit more doable then than it is now because we were not back in person yet. So it was very, very manageable. At
this point, you're enjoying keeping up the balance, though it might be difficult.
Oh, yeah. All right. So now that, let's fast forward a little bit now. So 2025, right? We're years, couple of years past. We're obviously, we've been back in person for a while now. We're playing basketball again, right? We've been for the last couple of years. So now here's the next challenge, right? In our part of our lives, right? You got teaching during the day. You got basketball in the evening. Okay. You're not at home anymore. Okay. You're still, can you still put out daily YouTube content, right? And then at the same time, you still have household duties that you have to attend to, right? So, and then at the same time, one of the YouTube channel perks that we have is we now offer coaching, which we've been doing for a lot of people. Okay. So we've been doing that, since after we monetize the channel as a perk. So now we're coaching VGC, we're coaching basketball, we're teaching during the day. We still have things to do at home. That's a lot. Okay. That is a lot. And, one of the things we unfortunately had to do was we had to sacrifice quite a bit. And the one thing I think we gave up the most was sleep. So for those listening, do not do this, right? This is where our bedtime was let's say 2 in the morning, sometimes maybe 3, right? And teaching job, you're starting at 8 o'clock, right? So when do you wake up? Yeah, 6:30, maybe 7. So there were a lot of days, less now, but more so the last 2 years where you're getting 3 hours of sleep at most, unless it was a weekend, right? So it got very, very hard, but I kept it up somehow. And you wouldn't know unless you asked me, right? So, but to juggle all those things, it was hard. Don't do that. For those watching, do not do that. Do not give up sleep. You will not enjoy it.
It's absolutely crucial to get that sleep. Would you say just briefly now that you feel like you found more of that balance to make things work in a healthier way?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I just said, you know what? We don't need to upload daily videos anymore. We can still upload consistently, but we don't need to pump out 6 videos a week. We don't need to do that anymore. We've got to the point where look, this is good extra stuff on the side. This is a cool hobby, right? We still help people. We still coach, but we don't need to do it every day. I reduced the load. For now, we are content with where we're at.
That's fantastic. Brilliant to hear. And now let's segue from there into what's going to be the final Pokemon on your dream team. So who's going to be rounding it out?
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is the easy one. The best for last. For people who have been watching the channel, you know what this Pokemon is. It's going to be Celesteela to round it out. Charlie, number 6, the captain, the MVP of the squad. Okay, we're picking Celesteela. It's the channel icon. Okay. I didn't know what this thing was until Sword and Shield, actually. believe it or not, because I played Sun and Moon, but I don't think I finished it for the reasons I said previously. And, you know, that was the generation for Ultra Beast, right? And I didn't know what those were at the time. I figured that out during COVID, right? Like Kartana, Buzzwole, right? All these other Ultra Beasts, like, oh, these are legitimate Pokemon. Holy smokes, right? And then one of the ones I saw was Celesteela. I was like, yo, this thing looks absolutely cool. I looked at the stats. It had like the perfect stat distribution that I enjoyed. It was super bulky, like on both ends, like both defense and special defense, triple digit stats. It was also a very good special attacker, triple digit stats there. It wasn't fast. I didn't need it to be because, again, it could take a lot of hits. And I think in Sword and Shield, you could click Meteor Beam. I didn't know if you could do that in Sun and Moon. I wasn't sure, but you could turn Celesteela into a pretty dominant special attacker. And, you know, this is Dynamax era. So, like, you're going for, like, max Airstream, max Steel Spike, okay? And then you're boosting your defenses, right, with the Steel Spike and whatnot. So, I liked its design. I think it was like a floating bamboo. And then I watched some episodes in the anime, right, where, you know, Ash had some experience with, like, the Ultra Beast and Celesteela and whatnot. And I liked the story there. And then I just liked the Pokemon. And I used it a lot competitively whenever I could. And I got to play different types of builds with Celesteela. It wasn't just only a special attacker. That was one way to play it. I also discovered you could, just like Ferrothorn, do that annoying Leech Seed idea. And I think Steela was a better Pokemon to do that with. So it ended up being kind of fun. Where like, yeah, I can stall you. I could Leech Seed you. I could Leech Seed you. I could click Protect. And then now I'm strong enough, you know, to like also just KO you after you've taken all this chip. Right, so there was a lot of different ways I got to play Celesteela, but you know, you wouldn't even think that was my favorite Pokemon, and it is, by the way, it is my favorite Mon. But I liked how it was designed. I have a plushie behind me. It's wearing my 3 medals that I got for my 3 championships for basketball. That's where I've been putting them. But that is the last Mon on the team.
Celesteela, a Pokemon we don't have access to in Scarlet and Violet, but who knows what the future holds for Celesteela, and it makes total sense as the Pokemon rounding out your dream team here, Joe. So, this means that overall your complete dream team is... We've got Grimmsnarl, Milotic, Shiny Goodra, Entei, Ferrothorn, and now Celesteela. So the only double up in types that we have here is Steel with Ferrothorn and Celesteela, and as you say, that represents so well the bulky, slower playstyle that you tend towards. But now I have to ask you, Joe, of all of these Pokemon, I think I might know what you're going to say. Which of them would you choose to be your partner Pokemon?
Oh, we're going with Celesteela, right? That's the one we want for sure. Hands down, no questions asked. Okay.
Absolutely. So now we'll lead you from there into a slightly different kind of question for you, Joe, which is, if you were a Pokemon, based on everything you know about yourself, based on everything we've heard about you up to now, what do you think you'd be most likely to be?
I'm gonna say something of the defensive sort.
A good way, and can be thinking about what type you think you would be.
Okay.
And I think I can see Steel for you. I can see that. I can see.
I'm gonna go with So like, if I had to like pick typing, I think Steel Dragon would be pretty good. I was very fond of like something like Dialga or even like the Hisuian Gudra, right? So, you know, the Steel Dragon typing is pretty cool. I like the Water Dragon typing as well. Yeah, I could see Hisuian Gudra. I think obviously Hisuian Gudra has a lot of overlap, I guess, with Ferrothorn and Celesteela in terms of that. They're all steel types, of course, but also that slower playstyle. So I quite like that. But what do you all think? Do you think of all the Pokemon that are Joe CloverBells would be Hisuian Gudra? Let us know in the comments. We would be fascinated to hear. And speaking of you all, it's now time for your community questions. I posted online, as I always do, asking for questions for my guests. Thank you so much for submitting them. I apologize, I won't have time to feature all of them. And if I mispronounce any of your names or handles, and I believe these all came in your own Discord, Joe, so thank you very much for sharing that there. First question we have here is, do you think we'll ever see you attending a regional at some point in the future? Yeah, that's always like the question I always get every now and then. I think you kind of know the answer, right? The reason why you haven't seen me, right, is look at what we're trying to do. We're because so you know this more than anyone, Charlie. Like when you want to go to a regional, right? It's a multi-day commitment, right? It's not just the weekend, okay? It's not even like day 2 of like, okay, you made day 2, so now it's 2 days. It's not even that. You gotta fly out to the place where the regional is, right? You can't fly out the day of. No, right? You have to fly out ahead of time, right? You got at least a day, right? At bare minimum. And then even when the regional ends, right? After that Sunday, then you got to fly out, right? So you need more time commitment to fly out of said city, right? So we're talking at least at minimum, what is it? At least 4 days that you have to like commit, right? Maybe, and again, that's minimum, right? Maybe longer, depending if you want to do like sightseeing or maybe like you don't have the best flight to get out of there. Maybe you need to wait a day, right? So that means you got to take days off from work. We can't do that, Charlie. We can't take like a Friday off. We can't take and then like take the Monday off, right? Because we're playing a video game. It's harder, right? So during the season, especially during the season, right? So like if we have a game, I can't skip, right? That's a forfeit. No, I'm not doing that. So it gets harder. The one time where maybe I could do that is the summer, where there is no quote unquote school because, school's out for the summer. That's why you were able to see me at Worlds, because that was during the summer, right? So I could come out to something like that. But obviously, I can't just join Worlds, right? You have to qualify. So, that's like the main thing, it's harder. I can't just get up and leave. I don't have that kind of job where I can do that. I'm not saying I have to do that for every single regional, obviously, right? But there hasn't been a regional where like the schedule just worked out, where I could just get up and go and not have to take time off from work. There hasn't been one like that. Now, if there was one like locally, like if there was a regional to come to New York, then that's way more doable.
No, it makes sense that you have a lot on your plate. And let's hope that at some point there will be a regional or two that you're able to attend. Maybe there's some way of working it in. But thank you very much for that question. Now, you mentioned basketball a few times, of course. Do you have a favorite basketball player?
I do. Charlie, do you watch basketball at all? Or are you...
I don't, I'm afraid. We're very sort of cut off from it here in the UK.
Okay, that's fair enough. So for if you are a basketball fan, so we're gonna go with Tim Duncan as our favorite basketball player. And I'll tell you why. This is, again, we grew up watching, since the 90s. Duncan retired back in like 2016. He plays for the San Antonio Spurs, but he's won 5 championships with one team. Okay. And though he is a star, but he's not someone that you might know if you don't follow the sport, outside of the casual level. So like, someone would know Michael Jordan. Even someone that doesn't follow basketball, they're going to know who LeBron James is. They're going to know Stephen Curry. They know these names, right? But you don't know like some of the other stars that are not in like the big limelight or the big markets, right? But Duncan was one of them. And the reason for him is one of his nicknames is called the Big Fundamental, right? So he had this absolute mastery of basics, like basic basketball. And he proves that you don't need big, flashy, limelight moves to be a superstar. He just mastered straight fundamentals, straight basics that you would practice, growing up as a child. And he just mastered those things. And he was able to not only just win 5 championships in his career, but again, he had the highest winning percentage in American sports at the time, during his reign. And he was a very, very quiet superstar. Like you never heard him, glamour, with the full glamour in the media and whatnot. He never had any kind of off-court drama. Never. He was a very, very quiet star. And, he sacrificed a lot, for his team. And you don't see a whole lot of that currently, because money talks, right? And a lot of people want money. And he never cared for it. He gave up a lot of money just so that his small market team could have some spending money to sign, talent around him. Excuse me. So this way, his squads could remain competitive. So he was a very, very quiet star that just had like complete mastery of basics. and not a lot of people appreciate it because, you know, he was quote unquote boring to watch, but boring was winning, right? And that was the main reason why I have him.
Fascinating to hear. Thank you very much for explaining that. And I think there's some overlap there actually with the playstyle that you've been talking about with Pokemon as well. Just keep chipping away. And yeah, especially with this slower playstyle with some of the Pokemon that you've got on your team, and the win will come. Well, thank you very much for your questions there. If you'd like to submit a question for a future guest on Chazingdra Chats, then you can find my handles at Chazingdra across X, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and of course YouTube. That's where I post the call outs for questions for my guests. I would love to hear what you'd love to hear. But now, Joe, we've heard a lot about you up to now, but what's next for you?
All right, well, I guess what's next, you know, it's 2026 when you'll see this. We've won multiple championships, right, for basketball. We've got a pretty good upstart with the YouTube channel now. You know, we're gonna try and continue those things, I would imagine, and the goal is maybe at some point we can come out to regional. We can also compete because, again, up until this point, we've helped a lot of people with teams. We've given teams that what I would play, we've given them to people, and they've done well at online tournaments. They've either won top cut or they've made day 2 at regionals with what we've been able to give them, right? So, you know, when will the time come when I get to use my own team, right, and come out to these events? I think we can. And I think we can do well, right? Because we've played some pretty good people in the past, right? We've managed to take some wins against them. I think one notable good one, I was in a draft league from Pokémon, right? Joey, I know you know him, right? And I think 1 week I was matched. Yeah, not one. I was matched up with Aaron Zhang, right? Who I grew up watching. Not grew up, but who I found as one of the first VGC YouTubers. You know, in comparison to where I matched up with him during 1 week in draft league, and I was able to grab that 2-0 win over him. You know, of course, that's different than traditional VGC, but the fact that I could still beat someone who is, again, an absolute master at this game, you know, that tells me like, maybe I can come out to regional and, you know, have some fun and do relatively well. So the day will come. Hopefully, the stars need to align, but. Yeah, but after that, you know, we're still gonna keep teaching. You know, might as well. We've had a good time with it thus far. We're still gonna do YouTube. We're still gonna do basketball stuff. We're still gonna do chess, right? So chess was, again, another game that, you know, we grew up playing, right? I played it as a kid. I played it a lot more in college, and I tell people this all the time. You know, chess, basketball, VGC, there's a lot of similarity between the two. Some people always like to say, you know, chess is Pokemon VGC just without the RNG, right? You see guys like WOLFE GLICK play chess, right? You know, a lot of the principles overlap and they all apply. And because I had that chess background, I think that also helped me pick up VGC a lot faster than maybe the average person, because a lot of things still apply. There's still stuff like pins. There's still things like creating offensive pressure. There's still concepts of tempo and pace. And all that is true in basketball too, right? So because you have these 3 games that apply very similar things, I was able to pick it up, you know, faster than quite some other people. So we're still going to keep doing chess. That's really what I got going forward.
Nice. Well, it's brilliant that you're thriving doing what you're doing. And as we say, yeah, very much hope that the competing side will continue to flourish as well. And now, Joe, looking back from now as a Pokemon content creator, and a busy one outside of Pokemon at that, all the way back to the young Joe who would really enjoy playing Pokemon as soon as they came out, right back with Generation 1 Red and Blue, what advice would you give to that younger you?
Keep playing, right? You know, don't stop playing that game. You know, just keep grinding out those games. If you're going to fail, you're going to keep failing. That's okay. Because, again, that's just only going to make it stronger in the end, right? It's going to teach you perseverance. It's going to teach you how to struggle, right? And it's going to teach you how to learn things, right? And just teach you grit. It's just like riding a bike. You fall down, you just get up and you try again, right? Until you get it right. And it worked for us for coaching. We failed for 9 years before we broke through. Okay, so And it's kind of like VGC too, right? You know, if you're doing the right things, your moment will come. And that's all I really got to say.
I hope that you will take that to heart. If you're doing the right things, your moment will come. Well, the chat with Joe does not end there, because now we're getting into Joe CloverBells' Rapidash round. 15 or so minutes of bonus questions that Joe has not prepared for, and as with all my guests, there's so much more I want to take a deeper dive into. What would be some of Joe's proudest achievements? What advice would Joe give to aspiring competitors and creators? And what does Joe enjoy doing beyond Pokemon, beyond basketball, in downtime? And so much more besides. If you want to learn even more about Joe and hang out with us for a little bit longer, then you become a YouTube channel member, or you can buy the Rapidash rounds individually on my Patreon, and being a YouTube channel member gets you all sorts of other perks as well. Fundamentally, I really appreciate the fact that you've listened to or watched this episode in its entirety. But again, if you want to spend a little bit more time in mine and Joe's company, then that option is available to you. The links will be below. But for now, Joe, thank you so much again for joining me on the show. It's been fantastic just to explore some things that your audience might not be so aware of. So thank you.
Absolutely. Charlie, was an absolute honor, and it was a joy to come on here.
I'm very pleased. Had a great time chatting. And if people want to keep up with you online, where can they find you?
You can find us on Twitter at CloverBells21. You can also find us on Discord, where we have over 1,300 members, you know, for all things VGC. So if you are a newer player and if you want to learn the game, right, you know, from its basic fundamental level, feel free to join us. And, you know, we have a lot to offer as well. And of course, on YouTube, right, at CloverBells, same thing, right? You want to learn VGC at the basic level, we got you covered.
Fantastic. Make sure you're checking that out. And everybody, once more, if you've enjoyed, please do like and subscribe. It would mean a huge amount and goes such a long way. And as mentioned before, we've got so many other chats with VGC relevant guests like WOLFE GLICK, Joe Ugarte, Aaron Cybertron, James Beck, PokeMMT, who you mentioned there too, and far more besides. It's not just about competitive Pokemon, it's not just about the video game. There's trading card game Go Unite, as well as more casual players, shiny hunters, and YouTubers, the works. More than 80 episodes at this point, so there's bound to be something for everyone. You can use the hashtag 6Pokemon1Life to spread the word about the show, but there's plenty more content on my channel too. I am a host and commentator for the Pokemon Video Game Championship Series, and you can watch my documentary about commentating the Europe International Championships. That's on my channel now, as well as far more content besides, and I stream competitive and shiny hunting and all sorts of other stuff within Pokemon. I'm at Chazingdra across all socials. My Discord community is linked below. My email is linked below. And with that being said, Joe, it's time to get into your Rapidash round. So if you're not joining us over on Patreon for that, or as a YouTube channel member, then it's goodbye from Joe and it's goodbye from me. See you next time on Chazingdra Chats, where there'll be another 6 Pokemon, 1 life story. Alright then, Joe, how are you feeling about these bonus questions?
Oh, I'm ready for them, man.
Here's one that actually I thought might come up in the episode, and it's not one that I've teased to you so far. Why the name CloverBells?
Okay. You know, I haven't gotten that question in years.